All right, well, let's get going here. Thank you to everyone who has joined us on Zoom and on Facebook Live. This is a Haulix Music PR panel. My name is James. I am the Director of Customer Engagement at Haulix. We are a music promotional distribution company, which means that we help people share their music with tastemakers, new and unreleased music, and all the people on the panel today use Haulix to accomplish that goal. We've been in business for over 10 years, and you can get a free trial today by visiting haulix.com. That's HAULIX.com. Now, I'm going to step back for a second and let all these wonderful people introduce themselves. We have 4 great panelists today. So, Ebony, since you were the last one to arrive, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. Apologies for my late arrival. I'm Ebony Jeanette. I run Ebony Jeanette PR, which is a boutique extreme music publicity force. I specialize in heavy metal, but I also have hard rock and a couple of clients that do more of like alternative and indie kind of rock. Yeah.
Whoever wants to go next. Jamie, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Jamie Roberts. I work at Better Noise Music, and Australia does not like me right now.
Yeah. Arguably, you're very popular in Australia right now. It just depends on how you look at it. Bill, you want to go next?
My name is Bill Meis. I'm the director of rock and metal over at eOne Music.
Recent indie power player from Billboard magazine over there, Bill Meis.
Our global president, Chris Taylor, is. That wasn't me, but we did have two on there, I think. It was Chris and then someone from Dual Tone Records, which is another label we own.
I saw the Billboard announcement go out last night. They had the nice Zoom meeting picture of the team. It was very cool. I enjoyed that. And last but not least, Mr. Freeman.
My name's John Freeman. I run Freeman Promotions. Still waiting to have the 10th anniversary party where ROG was playing in March because, you said we're on March 74th now, Bill.
Yeah. God
knows. I mean, we were ready to go. Guar was coming to play St. Vitus, and then, but I've done this for 10 years. I worked with I worked with Adrenaline for 9 months at the beginning of my career. I also worked at SPD Records, and now Freeman Promotions. Guar, Napalm, Spine Farm, Frontiers, staying busy.
A lot of heavy stuff. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. It means a lot. To give everyone a little bit of an understanding, some of you just kind of started this. Could we kind of go around and just give us a little bit of your backstory, how you got here, maybe if there's a few key releases or artists that you're working with now or in the past that are kind of like these cornerstones of your career in music. I know, John, you just mentioned Guar. So we'll just start where we left off with John. Can you kind of give us the very brief version of the John Freeman story?
Jeez. All right. Was from New Jersey, moved to North Carolina, high school, college down there. Started doing local radio, came up for the CMJ conference, met Bram from the Syndicate. He was the one who actually brought me up. Then I met some people. That turned into a job at SPV. Then from there, continued on in PR firm or PR land. And then in 2010, I started this. So
here we are today. Bill?
Yep.
My roots come out of the Long Island hardcore scene and the New York hardcore scene. I started out doing just DIY illegal warehouse shows way back in the day. And then make a very long story short, I ended up interning through the Sony Music company, and then was in my own band and toured for a while. And then I worked with Superhero Artist Management for a number of years where we were managing Throwdown and Bleeding Through and Tiger Army and Demon Hunter. And then I have been at eOne now for almost 12 years, I think.
Wow. Okay. Congratulations.
And some of the key artists there, High on Fire is one of the marquee artists, Zach Wild, Black Label Society, Avatar, Pop Evil. Crowbar is, I just figured out yesterday, is the longest artist I've ever worked with for the entire 11 and a half years. Some of the up-and-comers, Creeping Death, Enterprise Earth, The Contortionists, and the list goes on.
Yes, yes. Jamie, tell us your story.
I had some jobs before this, but my first job of real note was as head of publicity at Roadrunner Records for 7 years. We started out Slipknot. My first magazine cover was Slipknot on Alternative Press's cover. Nickelback, Don't Be Mean, not Nickelback people. They're nice guys. You know, all of the bands on Roadrunner. And I left there. I went to Universal and I worked Godsmack and Three Doors Down and you know, bands like that. And I actually was at Roadrunner twice, and I say that because now I'm on my second term at Better Noise. I was there for 2 years doing the Motley Crue final tour, went indie for a little while, and now I'm back, and we have so many great things. I mean, for instance, Fire from the Gods. We've been doing some amazing stuff with EJPR. He went to Minneapolis and Atlanta, and we've been having him talk about that everywhere. There's Bad Wolves, #1 at rock radio right now. Tommy Lee, my buddy. And, you know, there's so much good stuff. It's hard to even keep track of.
Love it. Love it. And Ebony?
So the story of Ebony, I guess, begins, I was a writer for Substream magazine. I actually got that opportunity because of Twitter, which was pretty interesting. But yeah, I wrote for them for a number of years, covering metal, mostly live music and doing album reviews. And then I applied to intern with Century Media Records, excuse me. And so I did that, and that led into being a tour publicist for Century Media for about 2 years. And then I actually was able to contract with Century Media and Sony to have Ebony Jeanette PR do the publicity instead of me being a tour publicist. So I did that for a little bit, and then, you know, also focused on my own clients and building my own roster of clients. Some of the people I've been fortunate enough to work with at Century were Napalm Death was one of my favorite bands that I worked with. I was able to get them some opportunities that I don't think they had previously, like NPR. We did a premiere for them, which was like a first for them, which was pretty cool. Some of the tours I've gotten to work with have been In Flames. I also, you know, more recently, I did label PR for Prosthetic Records, and some of the amazing bands I've got to work with there have been Psychroptic. Neckbeard Death Camp was a really cool, fun project for a while, got a lot of attention, and yeah, it's just been a crazy ride. And now I've just been focusing on Ebony Jeanette PR, and right now I'm working with Anova Skyway, which is a emerging prog band, and also Return Fire, which is a thrash band featuring Joe Nunez, who was the drummer for Soulfly. So those are my current clients right now.
Love it. Not enough Soulfly appreciation these days, so I like it.
I think we all worked some of the same artists.
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
It's at some point, yeah, it's all been, I know I've had some that Amy's worked, you know, Amy's had some, it's all been, seems like it's like a big.
There's probably a Venn diagram of all of our projects.
Yes.
Well, we were going to do this panel a few weeks ago before the protests and everything happened here in North America. And it was going to be right after Blackout Tuesday. We all decided to push it down the line. I want to ask, before we get into our normal questions, for all of you, how did you use Blackout Tuesday? What did you gain from it? And, you know, what have you been, I guess, doing in the wake of that? As obviously this is a bigger industry discussion. We've seen labels donating money. We've seen labels changing terms. We haven't really heard a bunch from different publicists and publicity agencies in terms of anything they've been gaining or trying to do differently or just thinking about moving forward. So I'm curious what the last few weeks have been like for you as publicists, but also if it's been a learning experience for you at all. Anyone can start.
All right. I'd say personally, it's definitely been a learning experience. I've been able to look at a lot, really become more sensitive to certain aspects and things that are being said. Personally, I took that day and I signed up for Big Brothers Big Sisters because I wanted to do something like that I can give back with. So I mean, I'm all for everybody protesting and holding up signs and stuff, but I felt like I could maybe do something a little different. So I'm really good with kids and everything, so I figured I would sign up for that.
Good job, John. Well,
John, they let you in?
Yeah, I passed the background check.
Nice.
That's amazing. I can speak real quick that at Haulix, we put out, I think everyone put out a statement these days, but we've also been looking for ways to increase diversity in the various programs that we put on. And I've been doing a lot of mentoring for artists from different cultures and walks of life, trying to offer whatever services I have as a person that talks about these things. And we're always looking for new opportunities to grow there. Jamie, I know, to just kind of keep this question going, I know that at Better Noise, you just mentioned Fire from the Gods has been doing a lot. What all has been happening in your world during this time?
Well, I wanted to make sure that I provided a platform for my artists to speak their minds. And, you know, AJ is the perfect example because he's a really smart guy, and he flew out to Minneapolis and Atlanta, and he was at the protests, and he talked to a lot of people. And, you know, I'm a researcher by nature, and I scoured the internet to learn things personally on that day. But giving my most rewarding thing is giving a platform to AJ. He did, Will Putney did that We Can Do Better event. And I had AJ and Doc Coyle and Amanda from Eva Under Fire and Hyro the Hero on it. I mean, as our job as publicists is to just provide opportunities for our great artists to speak their minds. And I got so like kind of choked up and proud of him when I heard him that, you know, it's been the most rewarding thing for me.
Ebony, Bill, either of you have thoughts to share?
Sure. So part of my job, what I felt was to, you know, really kind of assure my bands that, you know, because a lot of what my bands talk about lyrically and represent anyway are aligned with the same ideals, you know, that have been at the forefront of the protest, which is defending Black lives and, you know, calling out police brutality and demanding reform. So I didn't feel like, you know, my bands that I work with needed to be, you know, compelled to write statements or anything like that, because I feel like if you live it and you breathe it, you don't need to write a statement because, you know, everybody is doing that, or as a means to push content, whether or not that's your intention. That's a lot of times that's what happens. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of that. We've seen a lot of people just use this moment to kind of capitalize and sell products and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I made sure that I told my bands like this, you know, you don't need to do that. And they really didn't even need me to tell them, but I just did anyway. And, you know, obviously selling products at this time, I feel like, especially targeting marginalized groups and using the messaging behind movements as a way to push products that aren't, even if you're donating it to charity, if that's not something you already do, then your intention is still to just make money off of and capitalize off of a social justice movement. And to me, that's not okay. You're missing the entire message. And it's kind of, you know, unfair to people who already are, you know, have organizations where they're selling shirts with, for instance, Black Lives Matter. You know, we don't need Black Sabbath to make a shirt that says Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? So I just made sure that I told my bands, hey, don't do the things that you see are being done right now. Don't feel like you have to say something, because in your practice, if you're, you know, you're already speaking out against injustice, then you do that and do work, you know, in private. You don't have to, every time you donate or every time you go out to a march or a protest, you don't have to post about it. You know what I mean? So I just made sure that everybody felt comfortable. Obviously they can come talk to me whenever. And I welcomed other people in the industry, you know, other publicists, other, you know, writers, whatever. You know, if you have questions, like, come talk to me. I'm happy to share my experiences of dealing with racism in the music industry, of dealing with it just in everyday life, you know, and also share like my opinion as far as what I think, you know, actions are appropriate to take and still feel comfortable, you know, sharing your content too. Because yes, you know, the point of Blackout Tuesday was to actually pause what you were doing and to amplify other voices. And I feel like a lot of times that was kind of missed. It just became like a bunch of black squares everywhere. And then it became like a contest to see who could put out the best PR message. And that was, I just feel like that was a little weird.
That part was a little strange. Bill, what did
Yeah.
eOne do that, I guess, what have you been doing? What was it like for you guys on that specific day? I
Well,
know-
first of all, Ebony just nailed it. So
Yeah, it's true. I wanted to give you a chance to speak, but she kind of.
Thanks.
I might have a little bit different experience because eOne was purchased by Hasbro last summer, and I have to say, internally, I've personally been very impressed with the way they've rolled out their responses, not only to the the protests, but even Pride Month and all of it. And it was nice to see that, because that doesn't always exist at companies as large as Hasbro, for God's sakes, right? But personally, it was, my motive was to not, try to add any words anywhere, because the right words were being spoken. And, I just wanted to be there to listen, to learn, and to be an advocate, and to figure out ways to do that, every day, not just Blackout Tuesday, but today and tomorrow and forever. I got 3 young kids at home, so that was a lot of self-reflection for me on being a father and raising kids, in New York, in the middle of a pandemic. So it's all of it for us. But overall, I'm happy with the way things. I mean, it's an odd thing, right? Because we're dealing with such tumultuous times and such atrocities and negative experiences. But I can't help but see a little bit of the positive coming out of it too, because we're having this conversation. More people are talking about race now than they were not only years ago, but 3 months ago.
Yeah.
You can trace that all the way back to I guess it was Michael Brown and Ferguson. And, for me personally, that's when a lot of these questions and self-reflection started. So to go from then to now and to see how far we've come, on the issue of race, I think it's kind of cool. I mean, it sucks that it has to happen in such a violent way. But, and I'm not talking about riots and stuff. I'm talking about the actual people losing their lives. For people to stop and take a beat and ask themselves questions. It shouldn't take that for us to be having these conversations, but I'm glad we're having them now. A lot of these questions.
Well, that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. It is a strange time, Bill. You're really good at setting us up for a transition to other topics in a conversation, so I applaud you for that. But now we live in the age of coronavirus before this, and leading up when I first pitched all of you on being on this, I was like, we're going to talk about the coronavirus and what it's like being a publicist during this time. And then things got even more, not even complicated isn't the right word, but things got a little bit different. So I guess before we even move on to like anything happening with coronavirus and all of that, how has the past month been as a publicist? Like, were you shifting things you already had planned? Like, what has the shuffle been like over the last few weeks? Because I imagine there were things lined up that all got pushed down the line, and maybe things you were going to announce that you sat on. Is that all rolling out now, or what is the last few weeks been like as a publicist in the music industry, trying to balance, taking care of your artists while also being socially conscious?
That's been kind of rough. I mean, it's hard to know, when is the right time to talk to somebody about stuff these days. I mean, all of my bands are home and want stuff to do.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of bloggers are home and want bands to interview. Prior to all of this, I was a little bit busy, and now I'm so busy that I can barely keep my head on straight. I want to make sure that we do things in a sensitive way. I want to make sure we do the right things, but God, it's been busy.
I can imagine. Anyone else have thoughts to share?
Sure. So obviously, everybody's tours got canceled. So when you do a lot of tour press, that makes your job a lot more difficult. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I've been kind of navigating is setting up more live stream content for bands and figuring out, other ways to, communicate and like get the music out to fans in ways that are fun and interactive. Because like you can watch a live stream concert, but maybe there's an interview portion that we put in there too, or something else to just kind of build upon that. So I've been doing a lot of that. And then also just helping bands come up with more engaging social media content overall. and how to really stay relevant without just memeing yourself to death.
I definitely like what you're saying there with the additional content with the live streams, because if I can ask all 5 of us here, how many of us have sat and watched a full concert on a live stream? So
Less than 5, but I've watched at least 5.
Okay.
I
I think by Ebony, like when you're coming up with stuff like that to offer something different, you're making people actually want to come. Look, not that people don't like the concerts, but it's different. It's
Exactly.
You can go. Like one of the bands that I work with, Saint Asonia, they had a great idea. They were supposed to tour, and then they did a virtual tour of every market that they were supposed to play in. They would go to a radio station and play on their Instagram or their Facebook Live. So it was cool. It was different. Yeah. That's why I liked it. It really can't be the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I watched both Dropkick Murphys concerts because they were just so high quality and produced. I watched the Fever one, and I think I watched the Jason Isbell release show. And then I've popped into a few here and there. I'm not an Instagram person that much, so an Instagram Live doesn't really do too much for me. But I do really enjoy seeing artists share screen with their fans. I know Jamie Bad Wolves has been really good about that. Not just as the band account, but their individual accounts. Doc and Tommy both do a really good job of handling that. Now, from the PR side, are you suggesting your artists do more live stuff like this, or are you just trying to kind of field their ideas and guide them towards the right answer?
I have all of my bands are doing something on their, on their Instagram lives. Aaron from AWOL Nation has been interviewing some amazing people throughout quarantine. I mean, he slowed down a little bit, but he had someone on every day for at least a month and a half. And AJ has a show called Tales from the Quarantine on Friday nights, and he's had a lot of great people on too. He just had a conversation with Dave from Oxymorons the other day that was fabulous. And it's just, I do work a lot to put things like that together because your fans want to see you and they're not going to see you in person. So you may as well give them more and more content. And, I've also been stressing to them, do it regularly so people know when to come.
That's smart. I like your schedule. Jamie does a really good job, not to your horn too much, but you do a good job of sending out a weekly update for the whole label, so you can really schedule it out really nicely. It's easy to find, because one of the biggest problems I find on the journalist media side of things is that it's really hard to keep track of live streams, live performances, when people are going to be live, what is the thing that they're doing live. And I always appreciate it. Better Noise, you crack that really early. You send out a weekly update. Here's all the artists. Here's what they're doing. Here's when it is. And that makes me more inclined to check it out. Because when I pop in and something's already happening, I'm not going to join it like halfway through. I don't know what's going on. If I open it up and, Tommy from Bad Wolves is talking to a fan, that's really cool to me, but they're like in the middle of a conversation. How am I going to, what's happening? What am I getting myself into here?
It's become harder and harder to get people's times as the weeks went on, but yeah.
On that note, James, eOne had partnered with Metal Sucks to create a directory of live streams.
There you go. Look at this plug.
Artists, that it's still in the works, but it is live.
And Billboard's doing something too.
Yeah, and which is great. I know the Bands in Town was able to pivot very quickly on that front as well. But I mean, I just felt that we needed the metal and rock community specifically, and I'm talking about the underground bands that we all know. When Billboard or with these larger entities are talking about this stuff, they're not thinking about the small bands. So that's why we did that, because I wanted to have really, for the lack of a better term, a reader's a TV guide for a lot of the smaller stuff that was happening, and so far so good. I mean, I've never been working on live streaming more so now. I always think it's funny. It's kind of funny if you think about it, because this is the kind of stuff that our bands should have been doing the whole time, and I keep telling them that. And crisis spawns ingenuity, and whether it's being able to work remotely, like a lot of us have done it for years, but there are a lot of people out there that never work remotely, and they have now, and now it's part of being normal. But I mean, we launched our own Instagram series, eOne Heavy Talks, hosted by Great American Ghost vocalist Ethan Harrison, which has been going well. So I kind of like the fact that we've been kind of thrust forward into, you know, an age of the unknown where people are coming up with some really cool ideas to get their artist message across.
That's an amazing point, Bill, because, you know, people are really forced to be more creative. And yeah, you're right. They should have been doing it all along.
Agreed.
Not knocking anybody here, but, you know, all this stuff that's going on now, most of it anyway, has been possible, you know, before the pandemic. But the pandemic has shown us and our artists how important it really is. And who knows, I could be wrong. Maybe the live streaming, you know, arguably wouldn't have been as popular as it is now because you'd be competing with actual live concerts. Who knows? But it's still a way to connect with your artists. And as publicists, that's still a priority.
Absolutely. I want to know if any of your artists have approached you about doing drive-in concerts or some other kind of live entertainment in the foreseeable future. I went to a drive-in concert recently.
Oh, yeah?
Don't worry, I saw Mark Rebele live. It was very, very safe, but it was a strange experience. He performs in a green screen tent that's on the premises, and they kind of broadcast his performance on the screen. So in a lot of ways, you're still watching a movie, but he did like a call-in feature. People could call him and chat. But overall, you got to a drive-in at 7 o'clock to get in and find a spot. He performed for 55 minutes, and it was like $150 for 3 people to go. And I was like, I don't know if this can catch on for a lot of artists, but I see more and more announcements rolling out every single day. I know Third Eye Blind did one today. Andrew McMahon announced recently. So a lot of you work with heavier artists. Have any heavy bands been trying to figure out a way to get back out there in some kind of live setting?
Not my band per se, but I don't know if you guys saw in Germany, Doro did a drive-in show, and there was footage of it that came up. So she was out there doing it. And it's interesting. I mean, you're watching the set, and it's like full pyro, full everything. And then they pan around, and they're just cars
Now,
sitting there in a parking lot.
Do you honk instead of applause?
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
The other thing is now by me, you know, I live in Long Branch, New Jersey, so Monmouth Racetrack is over here, and they're starting to do – they announced 2 drive-in shows that they're going to do there. One is Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. And the other night is stand-up comedy. So Jim Gaffigan will be standing out there. And it's $150 a car for 4 people. And people are complaining about the price. But I thought about it. Divided by 4, it's almost the price of like a regular ticket. But again, it's sitting in the car is going to be weird. And then they're going to go – they said 1 person to the bathroom at a time. And it has to be sanitized after each use.
Yep.
So they must – and what if you're the first person there and you want to leave early? You can't back out.
No, you cannot. You can't. And there's no alcohol sales because it's a drive-in theater.
Oh, well, never mind.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm not saying that I didn't see alcohol at the show. I'm saying that you couldn't get that coin, so you got to add that into the ticket price a little bit to like
Understood.
fill that out a little bit. And you know, you can't leave the car. And in the case of the show I went to, you know, people were walking around, making sure everyone was following the rules. If they did see alcohol, they would make them throw it all away in front of them. It was very strict. And this is like, he's kind of an EDM artist, does improvisational electronic music. But once the show actually started, like no one was outside of their cars dancing. It was just like sitting with 500 people watching one guy have a really good time while everyone else was, I don't know, kind of receptive. And you weren't allowed to honk because it was kind of still in a residential area. So there was no honking allowed. So you would just kind of hear like a smattering of applause in the distance from cars. And then at one point at the very end, he allowed everyone to honk. But it was kind of surreal to watch somebody just really going for it, like as energetic as a live performance can be, and then stop to almost literally crickets because everyone's.
It's weird. You know, it's weird for us, but it's got to be extremely weird for the artist.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
We watched. Saul was doing a live stream, and like you're used to watching the guys, and they're used to playing in front of a crowd. So they're like, "Yeah, guys, thanks, guys, appreciate it all." And I'm like, "You're talking to." There's nobody there, but it's really interesting. I mean, you're talking to the people out watching it, but it's just very interesting. It's got to be strange for a band to be up there doing that.
And we're doing a festival actually. Better Noise is doing the Better Noise Festival in mid-July. We're going to announce all the details of it soon, but you know, I prefer that. I don't think the drive-in thing is going to work long term. You know, the streaming thing, like you can see your favorite bands the way they were meant to be seen, and you know, I don't know about being in cars watching a show.
Yeah, especially for like extreme metal. I mean, part of like the culture of metal, you know, is in the live experience, like that energy of feeding off of the artist, feeding off the mosh pit. That can't happen in a car. So it's just it's kind of strange. I mean, I'm sure people are going to continue to try to make it happen. None of my bands, by the way, have asked about that. But yeah, I just feel like it would be kind of almost a disservice to the artists and to the fans because you're not getting the full experience. It might just be better to wait until it's, you know, quote unquote safe, or do like small intimate shows. What's that?
No, I was gonna say the same thing. As like, you know, hopefully, and I'd like to think this is true, that this is temporary.
Yeah.
Live shows will return, and this will be just one of those things that we all talk about at the back of the venue, saying, "Hey, remember when that happened? That was crazy."
Right. They'll make a documentary about it. We can all dig in here, where we're all talking about how it's. There's actually here in Michigan, I got an email this morning about a house show happening on the 4th of July with 7 bands. I was like,
"Oh, that's brilliant!"
Oh, wow.
I was like, the punks are tired of waiting.
Fair enough. You gonna go?
No.
Hey, I'm just asking.
Listen, the show I went to was weird, and it had an interactive element. I'm going to a drive-in stand-up show in a couple of weeks, and I think that's even weirder, because if you can't hear people laugh, how do you know that it's working? But I guess
Chappelle did a good one.
Yeah, Dave Chappelle's thing was good, is socially distanced, and I would go. I know that there's been talks about this fall doing, not for extreme acts, obviously, but acoustic performances, doing like premiums on those really low capacity venues due to COVID. And I think people will pay it, but I'm still like, when will we get to like a full rock show again? Like when can I see that again? That's what I'm always looking forward to. And you're right, John, about the live streams are always weird because of the interactions. I remember the first Dropkick Murphys one was like, what was it, like March 15th? So we'd all just gotten into quarantine, and you could see that they didn't know how to do the breaks in the songs without one of them telling the audience to move. They're just like, this is, nope, don't. Well, just everyone says no. I did see one live stream recently. I think it was Jason Isbell's, where they projected the audience's webcams on screens around the stage so he could watch people. But audiences don't always remember they turn their cameras on. So then you're watching a guy like get up and go to the bathroom, or you have to change the baby.
Well, depending on what concert or who you're watching, maybe it might work. I don't know. But.
And even when it ended, they blasted like a message that was like, remember to shut off your webcam, because the room just stayed open and everyone was just going about their lives. So there are some hurdles to overcome. Now, speaking of live performances, segueing a little bit further into this conversation about the state of PR right now and what we're doing. All of you work with artists that are, you have some high profile artists, but you're also working with a lot of artists that are trying to get their name out there. In a world where you can't send me as a journalist to see the band that's breaking, the traditional way of like, you're going to love this artist. What do you find is working to help establish these relatively unknown acts or acts that are on the come? How are you getting people to pay attention to a band they can't go see?
Make it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find the story, and the story isn't always they're great live. Sometimes the story is, you know, they've been writing about social justice for years, and now the world's caught up with them, you know, or, you know, they, like I have one band where the singer is a clinical psychologist.
Okay.
So, you know, she does a lot of speaking now on how to deal with COVID and being quarantined. So, you know, it's not always the live performance.
Good.
It's not. And honestly, it's, you know, going back to the digital stuff a little bit more, you know, it's not just about, it is telling your story, obviously, that's what public relations is, but it's also about connecting with your audience or connecting with the media, writers and editors, in ways that they might not be used to. And two really good examples that I've seen in the past year or so was when Knocked Loose did that performance in Minecraft. And when I think it was Marshmello did that performance in Fortnite. And I remember those are two examples of when artists just, they come out of left field and do something that no one expected them to do, and they got a lot of attention for it. And if you're a young band now, think in those terms. Don't think in terms of 10 years ago. Think in terms of 10 years from now, and start there, and then come up with your own ideas, come up with your own strategies, stuff that hasn't been done before, because that's what will make you stand out. And that's what editors who know what they're doing at least pay attention to.
I also would say that now is the time to utilize your social capital as well, too. You know, if you are an emerging band and you're connected to a bunch of, bands that have already achieved a lot of success, get them to start championing your stuff, like get them to share your song or, things like that. Like utilize your connections, because, people tend to like things that other people like, right? So if you see all your friends have been sharing this song or sharing some hashtag or whatever, then you're going to be more curious about it. So I would say, doing that kind of stuff on top of having your publicist create your story and pitching it and connecting with publications, and on top of being creative as far as the way you're releasing things and sharing things, but also, use the power of your friends and your connections.
I love it. That's solid advice across the board. Are there any emerging trends you see in PR right now that's especially working? I think you might have already hit the nail on the head when you talked about the story element of it all, finding the right story. I know, Jamie, I imagine that you guys have done that pretty well with Bad Wolves and Sober being #1 right now. It's a perfectly timely single that doesn't have necessarily a direct line to the other things happening in the world right now, but there's a story there between where those two things meet.
Well, in a way it does, because, people are suffering who are in recovery and in quarantine. And, Tommy is an addiction counselor, and the song really speaks to these people who are trapped in their homes and can only have meetings on Zoom and, things of that sort. And he's speaking to them. I mean, they need somebody like him.
To the bigger question, are there any other emerging trends, things that you see that you think are actually working? I know we kind of talked about how the live stream thing it's probably here to stay, but we aren't really figuring out, other than diversifying content, what works. Is there anything else right now that seems to really be working well? Because I remember when it was like song premieres were the way to get people to check out a band, and it doesn't feel like song premieres are the thing anymore. So what is there a specific type of content that seems to be working really well for you right now?
Well, we're putting out films now that are noise entertainment. And we're really kind of dovetailing the music and the film marketing. And it's going to be great when the movies come out. I mean, we have a movie on addiction, and Sober is the first song from the soundtrack of this movie, Snow Babies. Mm-hmm. And, cross marketing like that, there's no better solution.
It's really creative. I know of Snow Babies because of the single. So there's your cross marketing working as a result. Anyone else, like what kind of things are you pitching that are getting traction beyond takeovers?
I'm finding a lot of success in the influencer space. I mean, you could say that might be more marketing than PR, but it's all marketing in my opinion. And this telling your story is always going to be the backbone of PR. Like that was true 40 years ago. It's going to be true 20 years from now. But the way in which that story gets told and how it gets told, and that's what is changing, and that's what you have to pay attention to. And whether it's I had a conversation this morning with my good friend Seth W, which I know some of you guys know. When we first started, we signed up for Twitter in 2006, like about a year after it came out. Not bragging about that. It was like, oh, this is cool, let's try it. And I remember saying like, oh, this would be cool to do like live reviews from shows. Like, I wonder how this will get used. Fast forward, however many years it's been, and Twitter is, without Twitter, like a lot of the political landscape wouldn't even exist. So you never know where a platform is going to go and how people are going to use it. So as an artist, if you, tell that story in as many different ways as you can to connect with as many different people. And this is not just writers and editors. I always tell my artists, if you tell a good story, you put out good content, and you write good songs, which is probably at the top of that list, not only will your fans pay attention, but so will writers and editors.
Absolutely. There's nothing I love more than a good narrative structure in an artist's career. It makes me feel a little bit more engaged to it if I know what's going on. Let me ask you this. We're getting a little short on time. I've got a couple of questions from people that are watching or people that emailed in advance of this event. So to get there, we're going to kind of ease our way into that. Stepping back from the current state of PR, I know you guys probably each have received this question dozens of times on your own. Well, let's just lay it all out here once and for all. When people come to you and they talk about wanting to get into PR as an actual career option, what is the advice that you give them? What is like your top tier? This is the thing you need to do if you really want to do this for a job.
Call John Freeman first.
Really? I can give good advice. I don't know what about, but no, I'll take that. Thanks, Bill. And while we're giving compliments, how about Bill's the first, he's talking about Twitter. He was also the first guy that I saw at the South by Southwest to stick a cell phone in somebody's hand. Mine, I think. It's like, here, sign up in MailChimp right on my phone for my press releases. I remember that, Bill. You're just like, here you go, Freeman. You were the first person to really I think at least, gravitate towards all the technology and stuff.
And you haven't unsubscribed yet. Thank you for that.
Maybe soon. I'm making note of
Hey,
that.
I'm a fan of Bill. I tried to hire him away about twice or three times. So yeah.
Our advice is call Freeman and steal Bill.
Ebony, I know you're a little bit newer to the PR game than some of the other panelists. What would you tell people?
I think the best way for media to build relationships with publicists would be, obviously communicating, responding to emails.
Mm-hmm.
We could start there. Another, I think also, is a lot of times media are looking for certain content, but we don't know. So they, share that, whether they're sharing it directly or just like through social media or whatever, putting out there what kind of content that you're looking for is a great way to establish relationships, because publicists will come to you if they have something that's, that is a good fit.
And further to that, Ebony, don't only, like if we're talking to journalists, which, don't only ask for the multi-platinum artist. Hook us up first and then we'll hook you up. I'm all for supporting new publications. There's a lot of podcasts and blogs that I've given people to before anyone has, but you can't just go, I want Tommy Lee and Ivan from Five Finger and I don't want any of your baby bands.
Right, and then get mad when you say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like this is a direct shot at me, and I apologize.
No.
No.
Oh, stop.
No, to Ebony's point, to support it from the journalism side, you're absolutely right. I think that asking for a specific kind of content, and as a writer, it's the thing that works right now. We're developing a podcast on addiction and recovery here at Haulix. I've been working with Jamie on a little bit, and it's a very, very specific request. But by giving her something very specific that I needed, we were able to develop a very cool piece of content from knowing exactly what I wanted. And I'm also, as a consumer, sick of, I never want to hear someone ask someone how tour's going again, probably, unless it's the first tour after this. I never need to hear that question again.
You ever seen those generic email interviews? Like, can you imagine sending them around now to somebody and one of your artists, if you don't look at it first, like, how's tour going? Yeah. Send that right back to you. All right. You're not a publicist anymore. But those happen. You get those. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you always got to read these things before you send them to people.
Exactly.
Any crazy stories from the road?
Yes. Yeah. Any crazy stories? Anything you wouldn't want to tell anyone other than me?
Right.
Musicrocks.com. Yeah. I know. Yeah. So
I always love, and I think Jamie, you might have worked with Zach in the past too. Yeah. But I always love how Zach Wild handles those questions because, a lot of I've had younger bands, younger artists, they get very upset when the questions aren't what they want, and I always point to Zach because when Zach gets a question that he doesn't like, he just makes a giant joke out of it, and everyone's laughing, and everyone has a good time, and it's perfect because it just lightens up the mood, and I'm sure, James, you've even written about it. But he's always talking about, Kim Kardashian, butt exercises and Viagra. And, and the best thing is that the writer doesn't even know how to handle it. Yeah. And I think one time Loudwire actually ran a headline that said, why Zach Wild won't answer any of our questions. It was awesome. But the point is, that, if, when you're in those situations, this is rock and roll. It's supposed to be fun, and don't take it so seriously.
Well, look at that.
He never did. It was terrific. He played Candyland with I think it was Jimmy Kimmel's people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My general rule of thumb is always if we aren't having fun making the content, no one's going to want to read it and have fun reading it. So unless I'm having fun in it, it's not going to work. We actually have a question that came up that ties into this. Sorry to jump other people's questions ahead. Scott D, one of our viewers here on Zoom, actually asked, what is your advice for writing email interviews? I find it really challenging, except for when I'm talking to my favorite artists. So what do you guys like to see in email interviews? Do you like email interviews?
I like I was kind of just saying, you know, like you don't want these generic questions, obviously. And it's definitely quality versus quantity. Like you could send my artist 50 questions, but if they all suck, then you know, what's your name? What's the record about? You know, it's got to be personalized. I mean, sure, they can be fans of if they do their research, if they really want to do a good piece. And I mean, we give them the info as well, but if they take the time and really see, and you look at the questions, like I said before, and we can tell. I mean, I'll send it back if I don't think my artist should be doing it, or I'll just tell them, you know, unfortunately, you know, we're not going to have time for this one, or whatever it may be.
I'll rewrite it.
Go write it?
I'll rewrite it.
Oh, rewrite the question. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, I don't want our artists to spend the time doing it, you know, if it's not worth their time.
Yeah. I like email interviews. I work with a lot of bands that are in Europe, you know, and I'm over here. So it makes it easier for them to just fill the questions out. But yeah, to John's point, like the questions need to have substance. They need to be questions that are worth asking. It's very easy to Google information. So to ask something very basic, or even like to ask a question that you know is kind of like a long-winded, complicated answer, I also feel like is problematic because the band doesn't really want to write an essay in response. At that point, it needs to be, you know, an audio interview if you're going to be asking like really long questions. But I do think, you know, asking the right kinds of questions that will yield, you know, responses that people actually want to read about is important.
That's great.
No one cares about like, you know,
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to tell people that when in doubt, pick a song on the album that isn't a single and try to find something interesting in it to ask them about. Just any of the other songs on the record.
Well, that's called journalism.
But one time it did get me in trouble because I was not paying enough attention when I was early out in my writing career. And then I asked the question and the artist was like, that's actually an instrumental track. So there's like an interlude. I had just been like, that's why I hadn't read much about it, I guess. Okay, anyways. You can still convey a lot in an instrumental track. It's fine.
Listening to the music is important.
Yeah, it's probably good. It's useful. It's useful.
Nothing better when an artist goes and says, are you sure the guy listened to the record before he did the interview? And I'm like, well, I gave it to him. I saw that they played it in Haulix.
There we go.
And they still don't like, oh, yeah, I don't think he listened to it, you know? Yeah. So be prepared. I think that's an important thing, is to be prepared.
Maybe they listened to it, but they didn't hear it.
Yeah. I also would say, you know, tips for writing email interviews is please make sure your spelling and your grammar is correct. You know, we will edit it, but we shouldn't have to. And it makes it more difficult. You know, we have bands that are reading it. They might not understand because of what you wrote. And then their response doesn't match because they didn't understand the question because of the way it was written. So I'd say that's very important.
Well, thank you for all that advice. Now, I know that you're all very busy. The fact that I could find 4 publicists to carve out an hour of the day in the middle of the week is a kind of a miracle. So a good question that just came up is, how do you guys, especially right now, how are you doing the work-life balance? I know some of you work from home all the time. Some of you are home from the office right now. Where do you find family time? I know, Bill, you mentioned having kids. Like, where does Daddy Bill come in and Publicist Bill go away?
About 5:30.
I love it. I love it. A hard time. That's very impressive.
And
Thank you,
I'm
Bill.
serious about that because, you know, work-life balance is really what you make of it. And some people don't have any work-life balance. And, you know, I was going into the city quite a bit because, you know, eOne has a large office in the city. And about a week before New York really shut down is when, you know, all the guys I work with were like, we kind of see where this is going. We should probably just stay home. I think that was March 5th, I think. And, you know, I've worked remotely for years, so I really embraced it because I prefer working from home. I'm not saying an office is obsolete. You know, face-to-face contact is important when it's safe, and I hope to get back there. But the work, you know, setting clear boundaries is very important. You know, just if you Google this, you can see like all the different advice people throw at you, like set up a dedicated workspace. You know, make sure it's not in the same place that you sleep or eat or relax if you can. That's not always possible for everybody, but ideally,
Are you taking a shot at my kitchen office?
I'm in my kitchen living room office. So that's fine.
I'm at my kitchen. I'm at my dining room table right now. So.
Okay.
Me too. Yeah, I have no work-life balance, Bill. I applaud you for that because I'm the worst. I'm up at night connecting Australian interviews, sadly. I'm up during the day pitching, writing, all of that. And I really need to do better.
I learned the hard way. Like, it's just, if you give someone access to you and they know that they can get you, then they're going to go. Like, when I get a new artist or whatever, I try to establish like 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Obviously things are going on and things are happening, but if they know that they can't get you after that certain time and it's not an emergency, they don't call, So it's not a bad thing.
I was definitely curious about you and Ebony specifically, John, because you both work with European artists a lot. So I imagine that there's a time change jump.
There is a time difference. What's cool, starting at like 9 or 10 in the morning, there's still a few hours, to deal with Europe. Some stuff does wait until the next day, but also use Slack a lot with European labels. So like if somebody can leave a message and then we see it the following day. But the time change or the time difference does make it difficult at some points, but I've also figured out ways to kind of work around it.
Yeah, I would agree. And I've always, not always, but I've worked from home now for a very long time. So coronavirus didn't really change that for me, I guess, just knowing that my lifestyle was technically quarantine. I didn't know that before. But I think that I've been able to, like, I'm in my own dedicated office space. I've been able to separate it. But because I love my work so much, I always like working on it. So I don't really have a good work-life balance, even though I've tried, to kind of separate myself from the work. But it's fun for me to, come up with ideas to pitch, publications for my bands or coordinate interviews or whatever. So I don't feel like it's daunting. It's only when, you have like 50 releases at the same time is when it gets a little bit tricky. But yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best in it. We work from home at Haulix, and it's never easy, but it's worth the effort to try to find some boundaries.
It's like we work from home, but I'm so used to going to shows because that was like a part of the thing. Sure, I sit at home, but then I would be in New York 4 or 5 days a week or whatever it was, and now it's like I'm sitting at home and sitting at home. But I work at the computer and then I move over to the couch for after. That's about how it's going.
Yeah, being a publicist is more a lifestyle than a job.
One last question before we get to the wrap up from our pal Jeremy Safer, great photographer, love him.
Love
He
that.
wants to know: is it faux pas for a client to seek out their own press opportunities, like a band reaching out directly to someone they know at a magazine, or even cold emailing outlets they want to be included in, or should they always go through their dedicated PR?
Jamie?
Good question.
Whoa, thank you.
Okay, let's let Jamie answer that one.
Well, okay. I don't have a problem with it because as long as the press gets done, it looks good for everyone. But the thing is, sometimes if they think they're your friend, they think they don't have to follow the rules. And sometimes there are rules. So, I find that it's better to go through your publicist only because we can play bad cop for you.
Yeah.
And we can keep track of things for you too. A lot of times, it's hard for the bands to remember that they have an interview that day or whatever. And so if we don't know about it, we can't really remind them either. So it's preferred that you go through the publicist. But I do understand, that you have friends in, publications or whatever, and they might have an opportunity that's kind of at the last minute that they just asked you to do and you just did it. That's fine. But generally, I think it's best practice. It's respectful towards your publicist. And it's just easier for your own life if you just let the publicist do their job.
And sometimes they'll put you on the spot if they're your friend and, you don't want to say no. And I'm a professional bad cop. That's what I tell everyone.
I love it.
It's not the end of the world, but at the end of the day, publicists do have a job to do. And if you're doing things outside of that, agreement, you're making their job even a little bit harder. I've had some situations where I've taken my car to the mechanic and he's like, "Did you fix that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did." He's like, "Well, now I have to fix it twice."
What a great example. Very on brand. All right. Well, let's fit in one more real quick because I feel like it's a pretty direct answer, and then we'll do our little wrap up. Mark Dean wants to know, when you get a request from a journalist that you're unfamiliar with or an outlet, do you always go and do research before you respond to them?
Absolutely.
Of course. 100%. I mean,
every time.
Because I don't know an outlet personally doesn't mean that it's not a popular outlet. It doesn't get a lot of readership, whatever, because it may not be here in my eyes. I mean, if I see it, I want to go, see what's coming. If I research it and it's bad, then I'm going to say no, but at least I researched it first.
Yeah, you don't want to put your artist in front of somebody that you don't have an idea kind of what's going to happen.
And if your artist asks you questions about the interview, the outlet, or the particulars, you should have those answers.
They always do, so.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, we're getting a lot of thank yous on Facebook and on here for doing this panel. So I want to thank all of you. Before I let you all plug all the things you have coming up, I will say that we have the next Haulix Live event will be a Big Picture Media takeover. We're going to have a bunch of their team on all at once to talk about all the things that they do at Big Picture Media. We'll be announcing that shortly. Haulix also has a bunch of new updates on the horizon. In fact, I'm heading into a meeting to discuss them right now. And we also have a new podcast called High Notes. It's an addiction and recovery podcast set in the music industry that'll be debuting at some point in July. The full first season will drop all at once, Netflix style. You'll be hearing a lot more about that soon. And let's do the plugs now. I'm going to start with John only because I know you sent out an activist email this morning. And go ahead and plug what. Yeah, well, you're in an email, I should say. I think maybe Amy sent it out, but it's Amy, John, and so forth.
Good job, John.
So
yeah, I was like, wait, what?
You're like, what? I did work this morning?
What?
So what all do you got going on, John Freeman? What's on the horizon for you? What should we be listening to, checking out, so forth?
Well, with lots of, like Spine Farm and Candlelit, we have the Atavists new album. It's coming out tomorrow. Also, Napalm Mushroom Head has got a new one coming out tomorrow, which has been getting some great press. Beyond the Black has another one. I've been actually really crushing with Dennis DeYoung, actually, of former singer of Styx. He's been all over the place. And believe it or not, today he's going to be on Shane's Lead Singer Syndrome podcast. So that should be
I'm into that.
Definitely bridging the gaps, the age gaps here, So it's a lot of great stuff coming from TP Records. There's a new Atomic Bitchwax record coming out. Frontier's got I have everything. Just email me. I'll tell you what we got, rather than me sitting here rattling it off.
I imagine that you have a giant whiteboard that we can't see that has all of this written on it.
Yes.
All right, Ebony, we'll bounce around. Ebony, what do you have going on right now? I know you just sent out a press release this morning as well.
I did. I just sent out a little blast about what we have going on. Nova Skyway is working on some new music, so that'll be coming out soon. They're working on their EP right now with and I also have Return Fire working on some new singles. So just, like John said, email me and I'll send it to you. But we got a lot of stuff coming up that I can't exactly give on details yet. Just stay in touch.
Love it. Very sly. Bill Meis, what do you got going on at eOne?
Well, if I've done my job correctly, you know what we have coming out.
Nice.
All right.
All I want you guys to do is go to vote.org and make sure you're registered for November.
Okay, but is there a new Creeping Death material on the horizon?
Maybe. Yeah, okay.
Fair enough. All right, then I got my question answered. Jamie, what's going on with you guys? You got Bad Wolves #1 at Rock Radio right now.
Bad Wolves #1 at Rock Radio. Tonight, Fire from the Gods on sounddrink.live to benefit Embrace Race.
Mm-hmm.
We've got movies coming out, Snow Babies and the Retaliators. Retaliators has all of our bands starring in it. It's going to be crazy, awesome horror movie. And we have a deluxe version of the Who, like the HU, the Mongolian band. We have a deluxe version of their record coming out with all the collaborations that they've done with Lizzie Hale, Jacoby Shaddix, From Ashes to New. We also have new From Ashes to New music coming out. Yeah, just email me too.
Yeah, everyone's very busy.
You can also check out our ad in the newest issue of Decibel Magazine.
Fantastic. Look at all of that. Look at all that. Well, I thank you all for being here, for hanging out with me. I love you all to death. I talk to all of you fairly regularly anyways, and I'll probably get a text from John as soon as this is over. So thank you for being here. Thank you for using Haulix. Everyone that's watching, thank you for watching us. This is available on YouTube if you missed any part of it. Is shortly after this is over. I got to cut off the beginning when we were just joking around. So that was exclusive content for anyone that was here early. And yeah, take care of yourselves out there. Well, hopefully we can do some real in-person events in the future. But for right now, we'll be here every couple of weeks. Find more information at haulix.com, haulixdaily.com. I have an email address too, so you can email me. I don't have anything to promote, but that's it. And yeah, that's everything. Thank you guys so much for being here. This was fun.
Thank you so much, James.
And yes, good luck with everything. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.